Let's say a very good afternoon to Angela Levin. Angela, I'm sorry we're so late for you. I'm afraid I got a bit carried away with the conversation about the police earlier.
I've been laughing.
Good. Now, listen, let's talk about what I think is a very significant piece of journalism in the Sunday Times this weekend, because there was an awful lot in it that clearly Prince William had given the green light to his friends to say. I mean, I was fascinated by what he said about the relationship with his brother, which is clearly more or less broken down to almost nothing. But also interested in his kind of constitutional view as well, about how he sees the monarchy kind of going forward.
Yeah. He's not going to interfere. Prince Charles, his father, has been painted with the awful thing that he's going to interfere tremendously if and when he becomes king, because he's got all these woke ideas and old-fashioned views. But in fact, he was found to be before his time about plastic and climate change and all those things.
Right.
But William said he's not going to be like his father. The next heir is always going to be different, but he's going to ask more questions, and he's going to try and establish something that feels right for the community. And I thought that was a very mature and yet modest thing to get across.
Yes.
Particularly because when he was 10 years ago, he wasn't very keen to become an heir to the throne. It was from childhood, but he wasn't. And this is explained as well in this very well written piece, that he was being an air helicopter pilot, saving people who were very ill or who'd had an accident.
Yes.
He started at 5:30 in the morning, came back very late at night, and he decided to go on a very brief jolly. And he was hugely criticised for not being in Westminster Abbey and saying that he's lazy and he doesn't want to be king. But it was just the fact that at that time, he needed a bit of space because of the work he was doing.
Sure.
I thought it came across really well.
I thought he did as well. And also his conversation about how upset he was for the Queen, given the way that Harry was sort of behaving, and the whole business of how you could really see that what they're doing clearly is setting out the difference between William and Harry, and that William also suffered a terrible loss, because let's not forget, he was also Diana's son. He was, Harry wasn't the only one, and he just comes across as just a far more serious, thoughtful, and more kind of less self-indulgent individual, doesn't he?
Yes, he's very different from Harry. He's now presenting himself as someone who's got a sense of duty and cares about the country and the people who are suffering and the frontliners in the NHS, but also very, very much so his grandmother, the Queen. And what really was the end of his positive relationship with Harry for the moment was when the Queen said the couple, Henry and Meghan, couldn't use Royal in their Instagram account, Sussex Royal. They hadn't warned them, they hadn't asked, they hadn't done anything, just put it up. And when they then said a very snide comment in return that Royal means nothing outside of the United Kingdom and you can't stop that. I mean, I also blanched at that. It's so unnecessary to be so rude about such an extraordinary woman who happens to be Harry's grandmother. And I think Harry was wounded. He couldn't believe what he'd read, actually. And I think that is really terrible. So whether they can ever make it up, I never think they'll do it properly.
Well, I mean, if you're William now, you're not going to be in a great big hurry to call Harry, because the last time he rang him, last weekend, they spilled it to Gayle King, who then went and told CBS this morning about it. So why would you call him back?
Yes, I mean, that's the thing. Talking about this private couple, Harry and Meghan, who left the royal family because they wanted privacy, don't mind about invading other people's privacy, whoever they are. And if you have an argument within a family, at the very beginning, everybody's a bit rough, and you need to be calm and you need to keep it secret and you need to build on that. They've just blown it out of the water. And one imagines that there is something there that wants them to blow it out of the water, because otherwise Harry wouldn't allow it to happen.
No, exactly right. And the latest revelation, as if we didn't know, by the way, on the front page of The Sun this morning, that the wedding that she alluded to 3 days before the real wedding is a complete and utter fabrication. And it was never true, and it's still not true.
Yes, you have to see why that is. I mean, I think maybe Meghan got carried away with a sort of acting, screen saving part in her head, that she wanted this to happen. So she made it happen in her head, where it hasn't happened in reality. I've also thought that she just loses all control and lashes out and tells lies in the hope that nobody will follow it up.
Yeah.
But we're all intelligent. We're all going to. I wondered how the Archbishop of Canterbury could actually do that in 3 days. It didn't make any sense to me, and without the people who were witnesses. And I think that makes you feel very strange about lots of things that she said. But the interesting thing as well to me was Prince Harry, who was only allowed like half sentences most of the time. And he said, yes, there was only 3 of us. Now, he would know. Meghan could pretend. She didn't know in the UK you have to have 2 witnesses. That's very doubtful. But Harry knew perfectly well that they have to have 2 witnesses, so which would mean 5 people. So why did he lie? My only answer to myself is that he's terrified of Meghan.
I think so. I don't think there's any question.
He has to agree with her, even if he's lying about something so obvious as wrong. It's absolutely tragic.
Well, similarly, the conversation that we had last time we spoke about CBS running the picture of his mother, which no British publication or British broadcaster would ever run, of her effectively lying dead or dying in the back of the car in a Paris tunnel. And I'm sure that if he even brought it up with her, she would have said, well, we're doing it with Oprah Winfrey and she works for CBS, so that's the end of that. And that would be the end of the conversation. You can clearly see where that goes.
Yes. I mean, unfortunately, poor man, and I feel sorry for him in this respect, that he has to do what he's told now. I mean, he was second...
it's kind of ironic that he was saying his brother feels trapped. I mean, I can tell which one's more trapped than the other.
Yes. But also, he was second always to William because William was heir to the throne, and that annoyed him. But he's in a much lower position with Meghan, much lower, and you can see the worry and the tension on his face, and that he always stops the minute the second she tells him to. I mean, other people would say, "Well, hang on a minute." Let me carry on, but he doesn't even try.
No, I mean, it's never nice to see a couple where one is somehow controlling the other, whichever way round it is, and it's kind of uncomfortable to watch. And it was very uncomfortable when she basically shut him down a couple of times and sort of did that thing with her hand where she sort of put it on him as if to say, down, Shep, you know. I mean, he's like a dog.
Yes.
I mean, Ziggy, my dog, gets better treated than that.
Well, I haven't got a dog, so I don't have to worry about that. But I think that's right. I find it very uncomfortable, especially having spent a lot of time with him where he was lively and charismatic and charming with a mischievous twinkle in his eye, all those things that made him so appealing and so popular. But he's lost his popularity, and that is because he looks terrified, and we are uncomfortable with someone who's quite obviously uncomfortable with themselves and doesn't know what the right thing is to say all the time.
Well, that's right. And Sussex Royal, I was talking on talkRADIO on Patrick Christie's show yesterday. It's kind of one of those phrases that sounds like a cheap knockoff sort of gin that they're trying to sell to Americans, you know, Sussex Royal, you know, it'll make you lift your spirits or something, you know, and it's still there. I mean, in the Sunday Times piece, it talks about how there's still stuff on that website. There is still a Sussex Royal website, and they're still calling themselves the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. I mean, surely that should stop, shouldn't it?
Well, that's a matter of Parliament, actually, if they'll take those titles away. I do think they should, though. But you are dealing with a very, very tough couple who are surrounded by very, very tough PRs and very, very tough lawyers. And every little detail, as we heard with Meghan complaining that she had to look up on Google how to sing the national anthem, every little thing remains with this team led by Meghan, and they will fight to the death. She has to win. She's got this incredible demand on herself that she's got to win and she's got to be top. That's why she couldn't take it. I mean, as it said in the piece in the Sunday Times, that you can't actually just think of yourself when you're a member of the royal family and when you're doing good work. You have to be devoted to the cause and you have to understand it. Well, Harry understood it perfectly well.
Yeah.
Meghan says she didn't, and, possibly she didn't, or she didn't want to. But Harry does know, and it must, I'm sure, cause him pain in the middle of the night when he wakes up of what have I done, what am I doing? But
Why am
the
I
more
in the spare room again?
yeah,
I mean, I think there's quite a lot of that going on as well. But little do I know. But the thing is, in the end, the royal family is now going to move on. The story appears to have kind of disappeared, really, doesn't it, in terms of some of these allegations? There will be a law firm looking into the bullying allegations, supposedly. Where do you think that's going to go?
Well, I think there's also a diversity review, and I think there's nothing wrong with doing that. I mean, it'll take a while, it'll cost money, but I think there's no harm in doing that and checking where you are, because the Queen has been there a very long time, and a lot of us have changed our attitudes to people who are, disabled or minorities, and I think that's a good idea. But I suspect that the lawyers will take their role very, very seriously indeed and come out with something which is quite bland, but with a few very strong points. But I don't think you can control the anger that Harry and Meghan have got by saying the lawyer says this. What will happen is their lawyers will then say that, and then the lawyers will say this. So it'll just run on and on. And I think the royal family absolutely don't want to do that. But I think with a couple like this, surrounded by a very aggressive team, they're going to have a very hard job, which is why we're seeing more of the royals now, and the things that they're doing, and the care that they're showing, and the selflessness that they're showing, because that's a way of fighting in silence, but with dignity.
I think so. And dignity's in a bit short supply on the other side of the Atlantic. I see that there were pictures of Harry and Meghan driving the Range Rover, which they have, which is a carbon copy of the ones the royal family have. 170,000 quid's worth of Range Rover, by the way. And he's also been papped on a bicycle. And as a friend of mine just said, imagine going to California and having a picture taken by the paparazzi. I mean, it's probably one of the least private places you could have ever gone.
Yes, he wasn't wearing protective hat, actually, which is legal here. Well, yes, but I mean,
it's probably not required in California, because I mean, in California, up until I think relatively recently, you can still ride a motorcycle without a crash helmet.
Oh, really?
They love their freedom there.
Yes. Well, or somebody said that the paparazzi were told that he was going down a road. I mean, it was a very nicely posed photograph, wasn't it? I mean, you can't tell. That's unfortunate when people do all these things of getting their own photographers and reporters there, how much is manipulated. And it didn't look as this was a photograph caught while he was cycling by. I mean,
that doesn't happen. I mean, I used to know an awful lot of the paparazzis that worked in California, worked in LA, and they had a great network of informers. They had a great network of people, PRs that would tell them stuff. And I mean, it used to happen here a lot as well. I mean, not so much now because nobody's going anywhere, but there was always a time. I mean, I always used to say, if you're a celebrity and you want to avoid the limelight, don't go to the Ivy, because that's where the snappers are. You can. There's,
outside.
I mean, there's hundreds of restaurants you could go to where nobody would know you were there.
Yes.
So yes. it's all a little bit on the fake side, I fear.
It's all the false privacy, isn't it?
Yeah.
But did you notice that Harry did a small start introduction to a book for children who'd lost their parents, and he wrote that there's a huge hole inside me once I lost my mother, but with time, love and comfort does ease it. Well, you don't see that in him at all. I mean, he's still anguishing about his death, which is fair enough. But William has tried to make it positive, so to do things that his mother wanted, but in his own way, and to work hard and to be dignified and to be a good father, because she was a very good mother. She loved her children. And I think you've got that there as well. There is a rumor that the draft was sent back to him because he said, and imagine how you'd feel if you had to walk behind a coffin, with millions of people
Yes.
watching. It would have been completely inappropriate.
Oh, I think so. I think any parent would have absolutely been against that as much as they possibly could be. But in a way, that sort of illustrates how different the royal family were in those days, because I'm sure that wouldn't happen now.
No. Well, Harry said that to me, that, I know it wouldn't happen now, but it was shocking for them to do that to me. And there I feel great sympathy, because he's little clenched hands.
Yeah. Listen, I don't think there's anyone in this country, in the world probably, who didn't feel sympathy for Prince Harry for all sorts of reasons. But, he's kind of, he's taking that sympathy and throwing it under a bus, frankly.
Yes, he's putting it into his bomb, isn't he?
And that's the pity. Yeah, exactly. Angela, delightful to see you as ever. Thank you very much indeed. Angela Levin, royal biographer, talking about the weekend's actions. And I think when we look back on this particular year, for all sorts of different reasons, that piece in the Sunday Times, I think, will prove to be quite dynamic, and it will prove to be quite devastating, not only for the relationship that Prince Harry's got with his brother, but for Prince Harry himself and for Meghan.